So another part of this puzzle is, what the heck is the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration? It's got a $5 billion budget to regulate industries that are, 8 trillion or something like that. The food industry, I don't know how big that is, but the drug industry is, maybe they regulate 3 trillion, but it's a ridiculous. They're tiny, and they have been entirely captured by the pharmaceutical and the food industries. In the early 2000s, the pay for the FDA started to come directly out of big pharma's money, and the way they did it was they instituted user fees, which are paid during the patent application process, and this became over half of the FDA's revenues, and they started to regard the pharmaceutical companies as clients rather than entities to be regulated, and they essentially became a lackey in pharma's marketing department. So anything you hear from the FDA is just coming straight from these big corporations. So one more point about how they work together. They shamelessly fake the studies required for drug patents. And here's another quote from Peter Gurcha, who is one of the founders of Cochrane, which is the most respected source in medicine. He said, "The pervasive scientific misconduct has led to a research literature where one has to dig deeply to find the few gems among all the garbage." And so these companies do is all their studies are ghostwritten by their own people. They manipulate the statistics. They throw away studies that don't promote the drug marketing messages. And they use contract research groups in other countries, which are easily influenced to produce whatever result they want. And this is the British Medical Journal editorial from July 2021. The title was, "Time to Assume That Health Research is Fraudulent Until Proven Otherwise." So I'll let you go on, Rembrandt. Ask me a few questions about that before we go on with the story.
Yes, sure. Just to reflect on that a little bit, it seems like a problem similar to Wall Street that happened years ago, where all the big companies were in cahoots with Moody's.
You've hit the chord perfectly. This is called regulatory capture. In other words, the regulator is in the palm of the industry, and Wall Street is famous for that with the SEC. And this has all been written about over and over and over. So that's perfectly analogous. But Wall Street is, as bad as it is, it seems less of a problem in this medical establishment to me.
Yeah, it does. Can it be fixed? What would have to happen for a rollback?
You want to cut to the chase, and I understand that your interest, and there are things that can be done that fix the problem, and we can certainly approach in medicine. The patients can approach their individual problems in effective ways, but these industries are so freaking incredibly powerful. I mean, Wall Street controls, the worldwide financial operation is, they have these mechanisms where they control all this phantom money, and it's supposed to be 200 trillion worth of money. I mean, it's absolutely crazy, or more. And these medical care dominates the United States. It's the biggest industry, and I believe it's the most corrupt. On an individual basis, right, there are things patients can do, and I can address that since that's actually effective. If you have a serious problem, you can get a second consultation virtually for a few $100s or $1,000 or something from almost anyone in the country. And that means you can go to the best universities and talk to the top doctors, have them review your case. The other thing that's good is we have patient groups for each disease. And so if you have a cancer or a problem, you can become a part of those, and there are people there who will help you for nothing. And many times they know as much about the disease as the doctors. So those are things we can do individually. There are things that would work on a national level, but they're impossible politically. And Obamacare was a well-meaning attempt to institute some changes, but they were entirely rolled by the industry people who just turned the thing into an excuse to throw more money at healthcare.
I agree.
So that's that's the sad answer.
The one thing I'll say different from the for Wall Street industry is when they get over the top in their behavior, what happens is the market crashes. So when the behavior becomes too erratic and everyone gets to see who's been skinny dipping out in the ocean as the tide recedes, then they're exposed, and then the market crashes, and then the behavior gets tampered, and new regulatory behavior comes into play, and the market kind of settles down and acts in a proper behavior until the next crash. But it doesn't seem like there's any tapering in the medical field. So
it's hopeless. Doesn't look good.
When it comes to the, it seems like one thing I always talk about with other people is it seems like the biggest problem is medical field and the universities, which are the two most highly subsidized industries by the government. I don't remember the statistic, but a majority of, I think it's 80-90% of the fees and bills that are paid by an individual who's receiving medical treatment is done by the insurance companies. And they all have extravagant prices when it comes to what they're charging individuals. And there's no open market to where hospitals and doctors can kind of charge different fees. It's because they know that the government and the insurance companies are going to pick up the bill. So the appetite to just overcharge, same thing with the university to just overcharge, it's going to be paid by the government or insurance companies anyway.
So that's good. I mean, that's sophisticated, and you smell a rat, and when you smell a rat, there's a whole pile of something around, right?
Yes,
and
absolutely.
so, yeah, I dissected all that in Butchered by Healthcare, and I sort of explained it all, and we're not going to get to the bottom of it here. It's a very complicated story. The insurance industry they dominate the payment system, and it creates perverse incentives for
Yes.
Overpayment and fraud and all kinds of crazy things. They take 20% of the total revenues of the $4 trillion right off the top, and that, like a house, they do better if we spend more. So having the insurance administrate our entire system, including Medicare and the private insurances, has been an enormous mistake that has stimulated many broadly terrible aspects of the system.